miles by the end of the year.
The president heading to Phoenix, where he will also be delivering remarks later this afternoon. A nation's top infectious disease expert is troubled by the coronavirus surges in a number of states.
We're now seeing a disturbing surge of infections that looks like it's a combination, but one of the things is an increase in community spread.
NIH veteran Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying before a Senate committee. Fauci says he's cautiously optimistic that a vaccine will be available by the end of the year. This is USA Radio News.
If your credit card bills have gotten out of hand and you care about your credit, call Consolidated Credit now. If the interest rates on your credit cards are so high, it'll take years to get out of debt. Call Consolidated Credit now. They've helped over 6 million people with credit card debt. Without destroying your credit, they can consolidate your debts into one lower payment, reduce your interest rates, and get you out of debt fast. The program works. Call Consolidated Credit now. Call 800-406-0046. 800-406-0046. That's 800-406-0046. Consolidated Credit Counseling Services, Inc., 5701 West Sunrise Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33313. Licensed by the New York Department of Financial Services and by the Vermont Department of Financial Regulation. Maryland DN 1492, Oregon DM 80092. Licensed by the Virginia State Corporation. Commission license number DC 83. Service may adversely affect the individual's credit. Non-payment of debt may lead to additional finance charges or collections activity, including legal action, not a loan company.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is pouring cold water on Republicans' police reform bill, saying that no meaningful legislation can emerge from it. Speaking on the Senate floor, the New York Democrat says the bill Republicans proposed falls short.
But the Republican legislation pretends as if the cancer of police brutality is in reality, little more than a runny nose.
Schumer, without proof, saying the Republicans created a bill just to get the burden of police brutality off their shoulders. Vice President Mike Pence is meeting with students and local leaders in Waukesha, Wisconsin, to discuss charter and private voucher schools. Pence saying Wisconsin has been in the forefront on the school choice movement and calling President Trump a great champion of choice.
And as Wisconsin has demonstrated every day, that by empowering parents where to choose where their children go to school, we're inviting excellence all across education, and you're certainly seeing that.
You're listening to USA Radio News.
Working from home? I'm Chad Dodd, veterinarian and consultant to Limp Bells. Here are some tips for keeping your dog fit while staying at home. Find 15 minutes twice a day and walk your pet at a decent pace around your place. Play hide and seek by hiding some kibble or favorite toys and letting your dog find them. If you have stairs and your dog is mobile, walk up and down twice a day for 5 to 10 minutes. Or better yet, try a power walk on your terrace or backyard for some fresh air. There are more helpful pet care tips at youmove.com, spelled YOUMOVE.com.
Senators are looking at the response to the current coronavirus pandemic and any outbreak in the future.
5 months ago, we were in the midst of the impeachment of a president. Today, that seems like ancient Roman history. That makes it imperative that Congress act on needed changes this year in order to better prepare for the next pandemic.
That's Senate Help Committee Chairman, Republican from Tennessee, Lamar Alexander. Democrats on the committee quick to attack the president, saying the White House isn't taking COVID-19 serious and they believe the pandemic is over. A survey finds single man's choice of pets can affect their dating life. USA Radio Network's Chris Barnes has the story.
I got cat class and I got cat style.
You might have cat style, but Colorado State University researchers say their new study suggests that women are not very interested in dating guys with cats. They showed hundreds of women photos of two men. One photo would be of a man with a cat in the picture, the other of a different man with no pet in the picture. 38% of the women said they were likely to date the man that didn't come with the cat. 33% of women were likely to go out with the guy after seeing his picture, including the furry friend. But the authors say that the conclusion is American culture sees cat men as less masculine. For USA Radio News, I'm Chris Barnes.
For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg.
The following is an America Matters Media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of America Matters Media.
America spends 5 to 10 times more on health care than any other country in the world. Then why does America rank number 43 worldwide for longevity? Third world countries, such as Cuba and Costa Rica, rank higher than the U.S. So what's wrong with healthcare in America? This is what's wrong. Our $3 trillion healthcare industry is focused on disease management, while 70% of our planet relies on traditional indigenous medicine that is focused on health optimization. Learn how. Join Dr. Dan Royal on the show The Royal Treatment, bringing you the latest information on the best of medicine, biotechnology, and pharmacology, as well as secrets from the past. These secrets have withstood the test of time and are being rediscovered today. In fact, indigenous healthcare practitioners are using them for the benefit of their patients who seek optimal health and wellness. Now, here is Dr. Dan Royal.
Greetings, listeners. We are coming to you again today via Zoom, for those of you watching us on TV, and also through America Matters Media, which is our radio station. I'm Dr. Dan Royal. You're listening to The Royal Treatment. We're here every week to answer your health questions, and if you don't have any questions, well, we always have some answers. Keep in mind, our program is designed to help inform you, the listener, or empower you with information you can use to optimize your health and well-being. Most of you already know that the current healthcare system is a sick care system based on disease management, and that's what insurance reimburses and pays for. But if you want optimal health and wellness, well, you have to take charge of your life, and that means you might have to pay for some things, or I should say invest in your health. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors. We have two in particular, the Turtle Healing Bank Clinic, where I work here in Las Vegas, and the First Nation Medical Board. Both of these entities are sponsored by the Crow Nation of Indians. This is because we believe that the future of alternative medicine, if we are to preserve, protect, and promote it, lies in the jurisdiction of the Indian nation. They have been given the right by the federal government to regulate the practice of traditional medicine, which includes all things alternative, holistic, integrative, and so forth. And so we thank them for their support. In fact, we recently updated our agreement with the Crow Tribe of Indians to include some other entities that are related to everything that we're doing with the clinic and the First Nation Medical Board. Well, today we have a guest with us. Her name is Carol Peterson. She is a registered pharmacist, but also a certified nutrition practitioner. She specializes in hormones, particularly female hormones, because she worked with Women's International Pharmacy for, well, I want to say 27 years, but she can tell us. Well, thank you. I was going to say you could tell us otherwise if I get it wrong. She also hosts a radio show in the New York area called Take Charge of Your Health. So we have lots to talk about today. And Carol, I didn't say a whole heck of a lot about you, but maybe you can fill me and our listeners in on the things that I didn't cover.
Okay. I would say in addition to that, one time I was nominated as Pharmacist of the Year. I didn't win, but my category was activist. And I've carried that into my career with everything. And it seems like in every arena of my life requires some action, because we are being attacked from so many areas. And I'm very involved right now with the Integrative Medical Consortium. You and I had a little chat about that, say umbrella group for complementary integrative medicine groups. And some of the practitioners in this group, in their member organizations, are being attacked and gagged. And I assume we can speak freely.
Sure. Speak freely.
Speak freely. The Federal Trade Commission is up to well over 250 warning letters to physicians, DOs, chiropractors, naturopaths, acupuncturists, homeopaths, supplement companies. And the message pretty much is, if you are talking about COVID and you have any kind of scheme to mitigate, resolve, prevent, build resilience to, you're could get a warning letter, and there are web trolls looking for you. The Federal Trade Commission, I believe, has spent $350,000 on these type of people to come out and find you. And so you have 48 hours to cease and desist. And if you're faced with the gorilla of the U.S. federal government, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is your presence on the web, or even a brochure you have in your office might be suspect. And one practitioner who is a naturopath was following the guidance of the naturopathic board in their state to put on their website all the things that they were doing in their office to be protective, and what they were going to be doing when they reopened their office. So that's on the front page. Buried deeply into previous blogs was how to help yourself with the flu or the virus season, way before COVID. So just even uniting those two things on the same website, not having anything to do with each other, got them a threatening letter. Right now, I don't know of anybody who is out now taking it to court. I think it's a violation not only of freedom of speech, it's a violation really of the regulation of the professions by the federal government versus state government. Professions should be state government role. That's what's happening. So there's a big incursion of federalism into our ability to really speak out and tell people what's happening, what they can do for themselves. And,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Very interesting. We're going to continue that conversation and talk about perhaps the difference between federal and state regulation. I'm Dr. Dan Royer, listed in the World Tribune. Our guest today is Carol Peterson, registered pharmacist. Stay right with us. We'll be back. Would you like more energy? A photon sound beam may be the solution you need. A photon sound beam uses electrical energy to ionize gases that generate ozone and light to enter your body directly through the skin. The energy produced by a photon sound beam assists your body's healing process. It does this by improving the electrical energy of the body's cells. Get your photon sound beam by calling 702-444-LUCKY. The optimal cell voltage for the body's cells is between 70 and 100 millivolts. When cell voltage decreases below 60 millivolts, the cell becomes weakened and diseased. For example, cancer cells usually have a cell voltage below 30 millivolts. Call 702-444-LUCKY and order your photon sound beam today. A longer, healthier, and more vital life is only made possible with optimal cell voltage. The photon sound beam has also been found to be effective in relieving pain, inflammation, and joint stiffness, as well as improving immune function. Call 702-444-LUCKY and get a free quote for your photon sound beam. That number again is 702-444-5825.
1 in 3 adults in America have prediabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Here's 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mama. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse prediabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Bet he can't say that in reverse.
No word in the English language is less convincing than probably.
Are you sure we should get matching tattoos on our first date?
Sure. We'll probably stay together.
Probably? It's been 23 minutes since I ate. I can probably swim.
You should wait 30 minutes.
Okay, now tell me what to do. Cannonball! Cramp! Oh, I have a cramp.
I can probably hit the green from here.
Probably.
Can I get a mulligan?
Ready to go?
Hey, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Yeah, I'm pretty sober. Yeah, I'm probably okay.
Probably okay isn't okay, especially when it comes to drinking and driving. If you're drinking, call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This overload.
Shannon Lawson here. Join us for the Nevada Radio Roundup, Fridays at 2 p.m. A good news variety show all about the local scene. The Nevada Roundup, Friday at 2.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now back to the show.
We are back to the show. I'm Dr. Dan Royal, and you are listening to the Royal Treatment. Now, if you need to reach me, if you have a health question and you would like some free medical advice, who wouldn't like that? Now, there are limits, what we can do. I had a patient who emailed me this morning who has a breast cancer condition and wants to know exactly what we would do for her. Of course, she's been through conventional therapy and is now in stage 4 and has had the mastectomy, the chemotherapy, and so forth. And she wants to know what my plan would be for her. My plan is for her to come in the office for us to do some additional tests, which they haven't done, such as nagalase and AMAS, to check the enzyme produced by cancer to inhibit her immune system, because that's what we work to emphasize. And the AMAS test to check the cancer antibodies to see if her body's actually recognizing and fighting cancer. And then we can make a plan. But I always need more information from the patient, because we're limited in what we can do for people who are not patients. And we're also limited by the information we're given, whether it's by text or email. So you can't really replace the face-to-face human interaction. And I always need the patient here in order to decide what's best for their treatment plan. We also have a rule, for example, patients may want us to fill out paperwork. And this could be for the Family Medical Leave Act. But we always ask them to come in because they're questions that we simply can't answer unless they are here in person. And you don't want me to answer without you because you might not like the outcome if I do. Now, if you need to reach me, you can always email me, Dr. Dan Royal, directly at droyal, R-O-Y-A-L, at THB Clinic. That's D as in Daniel Royal at THB, TurtleHealingBandClinic.com. Or you can call us here at the Turtle Healing Band Clinic, 702-562-1454, 702-562-1454. And now back to our guest, Carol Peterson. And we're going to continue on with our discussion. We were talking before the break a little bit about the difference between federal and state regulation.
Right. So no single state ever gave the federal government its authority to regulate any of the professions, whether it's dentistry, medicine, nursing, pharmacy.
Correct.
It's all pretty much sanctified as being a state's right and authority. But now we're getting, in various ways, we're getting like insidious incursion into our ability to practice. And
we should probably emphasize the point that the reason the states have that jurisdiction is because they are solely responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of their citizens. And what's very interesting is when they are challenged on this matter, at least at the Supreme Court level, they have never lost. So this is an area, even as of today, where the states do reign supreme. So please continue.
Oh, so we have faced a number of challenges from the FDA in the field I am with, compounding and hormone therapies. And in 1997, we won a lawsuit against the FDA. And if the regulations as they had written it were to prevail, they were going to prevent any pharmacist who is doing any compounding, that's individualized preparations for people. They were going to inhibit our ability to talk about any drug therapy, or classes of drug. So maybe you could have 2 words, I compound, nothing else. A severe restriction of speech, and it went to the Supreme Court actually, on commercial free speech, truthful speech. And it was a horrifying experience. I got to be there and go through the whole process. And which was horrifying to me was it was a 5-4 decision. One person made all the difference. 4 justices at the time decided that commercial free speech was not guaranteed by the First Amendment in our case. And it just was shocking to me. Having gone through that, obviously we prevailed, but then the FDA came back with a whole new set of regulations, and the regulations now are even more draconian, and they're trying to, first of all, decrease your ability to use substances, because the FDA has set up a committee where only they can approve what you're going to compound with, and they meet about 4 times a year and look at maybe they look at up to 4 or 5 substances per meeting, and mostly, in spite of any testimony or whatever, the FDA's recommendations are to deny. So our ability to choose things, and even dietary supplements, the herbal world, they have flat, hands down, refused to even consider that. They're not even going to consider it as a possibility. So I know there have been some herbal products that are being challenged, like Artemisia and curcumin have even been used intravenously. And the FDA is trying to shut all that down. Another tactic by the FDA, similar to what the Federal Trade Commission is doing, that if you want to compound, that your pharmacy can't send things over state lines if it is more than 5% of what you compound, or alternatively, you reach agreement with each and every state and they might raise it to 30 or 40%, which is a terrible hindrance to specialty pharmacies. Let's say your specialty, as ours was hormones, and we were one of the first in the country to do that. So our customer base, and we're duly licensed all over, was hormones. I know other pharmacies might specialize in pain therapies or are a special disease state. Like a friend who's actually Canadian, his whole effort as a pharmacist became providing the super nutrition that children with Down syndrome needed. So he needed to have and needs to have continue a wide reach for people to access that kind of thing. And I'm sure this is going to go in the courts, but it's up there right now. And then the FDA has charged the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, a newly formed group, but they're pretty much in the pocket of the FDA. They formed a committee to review hormone therapies, whatever kind of hormone therapies that were being compounded. And I have to say, I listened to all of them. Dr. David Rosensweet did a magnificent presentation. Some of the other presentations were okay, and some of them weren't all that good. Not the caliber of information that people should have out there, but the caliber of that committee was horrifying to me. The type of questions that were being asked showed to me not even a baseline of knowledge in physiology, biochemistry. So it's like, even though you have this big fancy name, National Association of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, it doesn't mean that those people have the base amount of knowledge that they need to have to make a decent decision. And why it should be even up for a decision is a good question. So they have completed their report, and it'll be made public July 1st.
Okay.
So people can actually go go to that group and sign up to listen to that hearing, the presentation.
Well, we always have to remember who the FDA represents, and they work essentially for the big pharma, the largest special interest in the world. Now, big pharma will pay billions of dollars just to get their drugs approved, and that money is going to someone. It's going to a federal agency. And so, unfortunately, we've gotten to a situation in our country where the regulatory agencies and our representatives are being controlled by the ones who influence them the most with money. I know with the compound pharmacy here in Las Vegas that I use, they have some serious restrictions, not just nationally, but from our state. So as you mentioned, they're not allowed to send some things out of state to patients, particularly hormones, but they've also limited, not even by our state, probably at the national level, they're limited by some of the ingredients that they can use. So for example, we can't get injectable NADH anymore. We can't get injectable DMPS. Now, NADH is a energy molecule that we use along with, let's say, B5 and B12. We can't even get AMP. We used to get AMP, which is another energy molecule. And DMPS, of course, is a mercury detoxifying chelating agent, which we can't get anymore. So we're being increasingly limited, and the restrictions are being multiplied on the compound pharmacy, with the ultimate objective to obviously get them out of business. And this has been going on for years. I mean, this was going on about 20 years ago, even when I was in Texas, when the apothecary compound pharmacy
Apothecary, yes.
Yeah, so they went through their trials. Recently, I had a patient in my office. She's a 39-year-old woman. She has metastatic breast cancer. She was only diagnosed last summer. She even went to Germany and got all the alternative therapies you can think of, hyperthermia, immune therapy, ozone, and so forth. She has 3 young children, like 2, 4, and 6. And unfortunately, the most likely cause of breast cancer, which is epidemic in our society, is chemical drugs, hormones. Not the natural ones, but the chemical ones produced by big pharma, such as Premarin, such as Provera, and so forth. I'm Dr. Dan Royer. Listen to the Royal Treatment. And I'm here today with Carol Ann Peterson, pharmacist, coming to us from Canada. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Did you know that 4,000 years ago, the Earth's magnetic field was 5 Gauss? Over the last 165 years, scientists have measured the Earth's magnetic field and found that today it is only 0.5 Gauss, a decrease of 90%. However, your brain needs the Earth's magnetic field to restore energy to your cells. The good news is that the magnetic sleep pad can give your brain what it needs to restore energy to your cells. Order your magnetic sleep pad by calling 702-444-LUCKY. Think of the magnetic sleep pad as a powerful engine in your car. It gets you up hills faster and with less wear and tear. With the magnetic sleep pad, your brain now has the energy it needs to repair your damaged cells, make enzymes, enhance immunity, and protect you against electrosmog, all while you sleep. Get your magnetic sleep pad by calling 702-444-LUCKY. Studies have shown that the magnetic sleep pad can help improve pain, sleep, fatigue, energy, and concentration. Get a free quote for your magnetic sleep pad by calling 702-444-LUCKY. That number again is 702-444-5825.
You wanted to see me?
Yes, please, have a seat. So here's the thing. When this company brought you on, we took a chance on you. You didn't have that 4-year college degree we typically look for.
Right.
But we gave you a shot anyway. And since then, you've worked incredibly hard and given it your all.
Thanks.
You've been an important asset to the team, but I don't think you can be an intern here anymore. We want to hire you.
You're serious?
Absolutely.
Find your next great employee. Introduce yourself to the Grads of Life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
I won't let you down.
I know.
Don't miss out on a resource many innovative companies have already discovered. Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
So here's the choice. Some people say the USA is finished. It's evil, a has-been, full of hate and injustice. The U.S. Constitution should be trashed and the Bill of Rights abolished. No free speech, no gun ownership. Competition and free markets are bad. We're all too stupid. For our own good, the government must own everything and know all your secrets.
Other people say that America has created the freest, richest, happiest, most generous society that has ever existed in the world. That's why millions of people are desperate to come here and escape their brutal lives in Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, and 100 other countries.
In America, we have the right to succeed, the right to our own living, the right to have a family, the right to believe in God, the right to have our own ideas, the right to be safe and secure, and the right to be left alone.
Where do you stand? Help us save the Constitution and restore the American dream. Go to SaveMyFreedom.com.
Brought to you by the American Media Council.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station, the power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now back to the show.
We are back to the show, and I thank you for sticking with us. We're now in the second half of our program, and so far it's been a very interesting and stimulating conversation with Carol Ann Peterson. She's a registered pharmacist. She was educated in Wisconsin, but she's also a registered certified nutritionist, and she's worked for Women's International Pharmacy. I should mention that is a compound pharmacy, one of the originals, because even in my early days, I was using them as my source of bioidentical hormones. So, Carol, let's continue our discussion.
Okay, can we go to a hormone thing?
Let's talk about hormones. Why not?
So I just organized a PowerPoint. I'm going to deliver it at ICIM, International College of Integrative Medicine, this fall, provided we meet. And I discovered that there are some things that we kind of hold true that might not be true. And I was looking for particularly progesterone. How many milligrams of progesterone or how much progesterone does the human body produce every day? And we had a number, and it was 20 milligrams, 30 milligrams. So I looked all over for source material for that, how we would determine the amount of that hormone that we made and where it was made, how it was measured. Was it measured differently in men and women? How did we do all that to get to that number? Which is sort of in the whole field. There are a lot of practitioners who give women that dose, 20, 30 milligrams. And I will say that those women aren't necessarily doing very well.
Well, that's only 2 or 3%, right? 2 or 3%, isn't that what that translates to? I mean,
yes,
technically that's like over-the-counter stuff, but go ahead.
Right, exactly. Anyway, there's a number of things, and I finally figured out what the source of that, and it was one of the pioneers in hormone therapy, which was Dr. John Lee from California.
Right.
He wrote a book, and I liked his book, Natural Progesterone. But he's the one who said 20 milligrams.
Yeah.
He also said these things like hormones store in your fat. And here we go, is another urban myth, because I have yet to find a fat biopsy that proves that. And I have been looking for 27 years. No, not quite, but maybe 25. And when I was at the University of Wisconsin, I had been interested in going to grad school, and I was going to work with Dr. Joe Robinson, whose specialty was skin and eyes. And he actually did a lot of work with progesterone, and he created a progesterone product that's vaginal. It's called Crinone. So it's essentially progesterone in a lubricant, Replens, which he also developed. So we go to him and go, Dr. Robinson, what about this idea of fat storage of hormones? And he goes, well, that's complete rubbish. He said it just has to get through the stratus corneum in your skin, and then it goes into your bloodstream. End of story. That's how it works. And then there's also this thing about rotating where you put your hormones on, because your receptors get saturated in a particular spot. Well, that's nothing has ever been shown to make that a true statement. All of that came from John Lee. I went back to his writing, picked out those things, and I communicated with Dr. Ray Peat.
Correct. Okay.
You remember his name?
Yes, I've been getting his newsletter for 30 years.
Me too. I love it. I don't 100% agree with him, but he always makes me have to think.
Well, everything he says in his newsletter is, for the most part, documented, which I find quite interesting. But go ahead.
Yes. So he's, he's foundational. He's the scientist behind all this. John Lee stole his ideas, actually, I believe, and I've heard John Lee speak many times, and he very rarely gave Dr. Peat the credit. I think.
Yeah, Dr. Peat actually did his doctoral dissertation. You might know this back around 1970 on the subject of estrogen, the hormone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So he's been amazing. So I emailed Dr. Peat and I go, where did all this stuff come from? And he goes, well, basically, he said John Lee made it up. He thought it was a good number.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah. And he attached a reference, like you just said. He references stuff.
Right.
And the reference contained just one study, and it was a measure of the venous return from the uterus, and that was well over 100 milligrams.
Well, one of the things that Dr. Peat has said, which I never forgot, was that if you do overdose on progesterone, which I've never known anyone to come close to doing that, you behave as if you're drunk. The bottom line is you really, for the most part, can't overdose on progesterone. It does so much for the body, and of course breaks down to other hormones. And we actually use it in our cancer patients because it is anti-carcinogenic. And I'm talking about the natural hormone. One of the things we have to educate patients about is the cancers associated with hormones are the prescription drugs because they are drugs with side effects. But natural products don't have side effects. They have direct effects, not side effects. And usually those direct effects are beneficial in some way because it's breaking down to yet another natural product. What do you think?
Absolutely, 100%. The other thing is we've since learned quite a lot since almost 30 years ago. I have. But hormones do not necessarily just become excreted by an organ like the ovaries and the testes and the thyroid and the pituitary. Your body makes hormones all over the place. And one of the articles I pulled was the Schwann cells, which are the cells that cover, that create myelin, the covering from all your nervous system tissue.
Okay.
Those Schwann cells make their own pregnenolone and progesterone. It's so important. And a clue to this is a low progesterone state is present when people are having seizures. They're unable to maintain that sheath that they need to protect their nerves.
Okay.
In the brain. Everything's in your brain to make hormones.
Well, the brain does have receptors for, as you mentioned, pregnenolone, I believe progesterone, but certainly for active thyroid, T3 as well.
Absolutely. That whole endocrine system is in your brain as well. All of the enzymes, all of the source materials. Progesterone is a major neurosteroid, and it is a precursor to an even more major one, allopregnenolone. So
well, you mentioned that it's in the brain. I just want to just mention there was a study done showing the effectiveness of using pregnenolone in the treatment of a post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, this is for the veterans. But remember that pregnenolone is a mother steroid. It breaks down to what? Progesterone.
And DHEA.
Correct. Yes. Correct.
But definitely. And traumatic brain injury, same thing. There's damage to the pituitary and the hypothalamus and even the pineal gland in your brain when you have brain trauma. I've taken Mark Gordon's course on TBI at least 4 times, and he also has it very, very well documented that those hormones make a huge difference. And then we have this intracrinology. And the work for this was done by somebody at McGill University that with starting material DHEA, inside your cell, you can make every other hormone that your body wants, the estrogens, testosterone, other adrenal hormones, all possible right inside your cell. hormone we actually make. It's too many sources, too much in transition to ever learn that mystery. So I'd like to say we've had a myth that continues. Please don't underuse progesterone. I think it's a dangerous state. It stimulates your estrogen receptors for estrogen, probably, but too many women have used that small amount and their breasts swell up and they're anxious and raging and can't sleep. That means too little progesterone. And then they think,
right.
I've tried progesterone and I can't take it.
Well, part of the problem is when you're supplementing with a natural product like progesterone, when you take that or you increase your level, you're resensitizing your cells, and now your body wakes up to the real state of estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency. So what that means is, as you correctly pointed out, you need more progesterone. One of the things that I will also mention about Ray Peat, he's written a few books, and one of the books he talks about the effect of using progesterone in pregnant women. Of course, when you're pregnant, your progesterone should be as high as it can possibly be. As soon as the egg has been, let's say, implanted, the progesterone should kick in. If it's not kicking in, what happens? Well, you'll eventually have a miscarriage. But if you have a high level of progesterone, what has been shown is that it correlates with a higher IQ in your children, because it's so very important for brain, or as you mentioned, neurodevelopment.
Right. That was original work done by Dr. Katarina Dalton over 50 years ago. So it makes you wonder. And I actually read in Dr. Peat's book that when you get gestational diabetes, you do that to enhance the oxygen to the brain of the fetus, which progesterone would have been doing, but somehow your progesterone isn't adequate. Your second fallback position is gestational diabetes, and I would say anybody who is looking at that kind of diagnosis, they should be zipping up on their progesterone and have the smarter kids.
Well, hold that thought, because I want to continue this discussion after the break. I'm Dr. Dan Roy. You're listening to The Royal Treatment. My guest today is Carol Ann Peterson. I know Carol Ann Peterson. Carol Peterson. She's a pharmacist, registered pharmacist, and certified nutritionist. We'll be right back. Did you know that stem cells are present in all of us, just waiting for an opportunity to regenerate your organs and other body tissues? Studies show that your own stem cells are released into the bloodstream following a trauma. However, a plant-based supplement called RBC Blend has been found to increase stem cells in your blood without trauma. Order your RBC Blend by calling 702-444-LUCKY. One study showed that participants who used RBC Blend increased stem cells in their blood by over 100% after only 2 weeks. Increase your stem cells with RBC Blend by calling 702-444-LUCKY. Stem cells are the ultimate anti-aging treatment. For example, they can be used to improve facial appearance, skin tone, and hair growth. Stem cells can also help with muscle aches and joint pains. Increase your stem cells with RBC Blend by calling 702-444-5825. Could RBC Blend be what you need to achieve optimal health and wellness? Find out today and order RBC Blend by calling 702-444-LUCKY. That number again is 702-444-5825.
Rich is just a really, really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. And even more stuff, but still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover guitar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Getting to know you. Let me tell you about America Matters with Eddie Floyd. It comes on every Monday at noon. Don't want you to miss it. That's America Matters with Eddie Floyd.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now back to the show.
We are back to the show. I'm Dr. Dan Royal, and you're listening to The Royal Treatment, coming to you from Las Vegas through America Matters Media on radio and television. If you need to reach me directly, you can email me at droyal@thbclinic.com. Remember, that's one of our sponsors, the Turtle Healing Band Clinic. D, as in Daniel, Royal, R-O-Y-A-L, at THB for Turtle Healing Band Clinic.com, or email us, or not email us, call us if you don't email us, 702-560-1454, 702-560-1454. My guest today is Carol Peterson, registered pharmacist and certified nutritionist, and we're going to continue our discussion on natural hormones. Take it away, Carol.
Oh, where should we go from there? There's other things that are really interesting about hormones. Let's go to Dr. Jerry Lynn Pryor's work.
Okay.
She has for decades been looking at the menstrual cycle and ovulation, and she's at the University of British Columbia. I've had the lovely opportunity to meet her, and she's become my friend, and she put me on her scientific advisory board. Okay. And once she made me help with trying to get a grant, and so it's got all these things about how many chairs you held at the university, how many articles you've published, and none of it applies. Okay. I go, why do you want me on this grant? She says, the grant is about the translation of information from studies to practitioners to patients, and that simply is not done very well. And she said, you're really good at it. And I've written a newsletter for more than 20 years, or edited or put it together. And that was really a big part of my work, putting out the word. When I first started in this field, nobody knew anything about anything. And over the years, we built up that knowledge base so people can read in a manner that is understandable, both practitioners, well documented, but your patients have to be able to read what's going on. So that has been such a wonderful tool, and getting the public some information, and so they know what they can ask for. They can identify what's going wrong with them and bring that up to their practitioners. It's a really sad thing with conventional medicine these days. I hear back from people, they go see somebody and they spend the whole time not even looking at the patient, but they're sitting answering questions on the computer.
Correct.
Now, in my opinion, if you're a good medical practitioner, and I still believe that it's really an art, not a science.
Yes, it is.
It's the science is too easily twisted, but you can tell an extreme amount about that patient the minute you encounter them. And I liked what you said before about somebody has to come to your office and see you and interact with you and allow your body to take in what that patient is presented with. I once did a newsletter on just looking at the person's face. You can see all these hormone deficiencies.
Okay.
And
But one of the things I'll mention when you're interacting with the patient, there's an intuition, and some people might call it bedside manner, but when a patient is here and I can connect with them, I can help determine what I feel would be most appropriate for them. Now, I never ask a patient to do anything you're not willing to do. I need to be able to understand where the patient has been in order to be able to determine where I want to help them to go to improve their health and achieve their goals with our mutual cooperation.
Right. One of the things I've done with consultations with people about hormones is I listen to their story, whatever's going on with them, and I'm very patient and I listen carefully. And then I'll say, having listened to you, let me translate what I'm getting in mind when you're talking about this and why I think this. And I go into that conversation. And it's very interesting when people hear that, you know, they feel so validated. They'll say, you are absolutely right. That just fits everything I'm thinking about. And I know that we're on the right track for some kind of connection to help that person get better and get what they want. I also know if that connection isn't there, let's say, and this is friends and family are the absolute worst, because you can see right in front of your eyes and you know them and you know you could help if they'd only let you. And it's like nothing you can say or do lets you in. I don't know, maybe it's a problem with being too close to somebody.
Well, one of the things that I found when you have a one-on-one interaction and I'm talking with somebody and we're actually connecting, in the process of talking, I will actually say some things that educate us both. Maybe it was unexpected. You can call it truth from God or from the universe. Mm-hmm. There are various ways by which that is manifest, and occasionally I found myself saying things that helped me to answer questions that I had or I hadn't thought about. But it came out in a conversation. It wasn't something I premeditated. It was just part of the natural human interaction experience.
Yes. And I've often advised people to find an old doctor because that person has had a lifetime of those interactions and a lifetime of learning from patients. And that's the encyclopedia of everything that you'd really like to hook into. So if you go to a physician who's newly trained, just out of school, they have none of that. They've been successfully getting themselves out of school in their training, but they're doing this by rote.
Correct. So, for example, last week we had a guest on our show, Dr. Jackie C. He's a cardiologist who has been through a health journey himself and is a proponent and practitioner of alternative medicine. But he's 78 years old. He comes from the generation that believes that, well, let's say during the first part of your life, you're getting your education, and during the middle part of your life, you're practicing now what you've been trained to do. But during the latter part of your life, you give back, and that's what he is doing.
Very, very nice. I think that's reflective for me too. Right now, I want people to have the information they need. When they know they get the information for themselves, they resonate with it. And that's what you're doing with this program as well. If it's for you, you're going to want it and you're going to implement it for yourself. And I'll say, for example, you could read a book on something and pick it up years later. And that book now has information that's actionable for you. And before it meant nothing to you at all. Perhaps you weren't evolved enough, or you weren't ready to hear that information, or you didn't need it at the time. Who knows? But rereading something can be actually pretty powerful. And I was an older doctor. He told me he practiced in a small town in Nebraska. He said he had a mentor, an older mentor too, and his mentor told him, always be mindful when your patients bring you something to look at. He said, you can't afford to have a reader's service to provide the golden information that patient is bringing you. And so many practitioners too in conventional medicine, people bring things up, they clip things out, they bring a book,
Right.
say, you know, my doctor needs to know about it, and it's completely rejected. Well, if that's being rejected, you know, you can't have a relationship with that practitioner to
Yeah.
go forward.
I mean, I've had patients give me some things and I appreciate it, and I actually will read it.
Yes.
We had a patient who donated some pictures to us because we're an Indian Nation facility, and some of these were, well, painted by Indian artists. They were drawings or paintings, and she didn't think her children would like them, and we hung them up in our clinic. I'm very proud to have them here, although my wife, who helps us with some of the decorating here in the clinic, doesn't think we need something on every wall. But I think that when it comes donated like that from a patient, we need to value it, and it means more than just a picture on the wall.
It does. It does. It's really powerful. So I was going back to, let's go back to Jerry Lynn Pryor, because I introduced her and we got off.
Okay.
So I became friends with her, and one big piece of work she's put out and had a terrible time actually getting this published. And this is a whole nother pile of worms too, about getting something published that's valid and truthful. So she found that women in perimenopause have the highest amount of estrogen in their entire lives. And coupled with the loss of ovarian progesterone, which comes at ovulation to the first day of bleeding, is when women's body puts out the huge amount of progesterone. Sometimes you lose that. In perimenopause, you stop having regular ovulations. You skip a month here, you skip a month there. So then you don't have that. So coupled with low progesterone and the highest estrogen you've ever had in your life, and suddenly you have sleep problems, high anxiety, water retention, headaches, migraine, and you go to your conventional doctor and they say you're perimenopausal and you need estrogen.
Right. That's the wrong approach. We've been talking about this on the show. Use natural progesterone. It's so much more broad spectrum. One of the first things I do for my patients is put them on DHA and pregnenolone, because when we test for them, we find that they're almost always deficient. I'm Dr. Dan Roy. You've been listening to The Royal Treatment today. My guest has been Carol Peterson, registered pharmacist and certified nutritionist. Thank you for being with us, and hopefully you've learned one new thing. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, my friends, be well.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.